Hello there guys, what's going on? Son of Chelsea back here again for another video, and it's time to talk about, yes, John Terry. I've kind of been talking about making this video, and I'm here today to kind of debate it a little bit, talk about why I think John Terry shouldn't leave Chelsea, and also I do feel there are some counterpoints to the argument. I think I put on Twitter that there are 50 reasons probably why John Terry should stay at Chelsea. I can't think of one logical reason why he should leave. Maybe that's a little bit too strong. I think there is one obvious one, which I'll get out of the way straight away. Let's talk about the counterpoint and why it might be a good decision why John Terry should leave Chelsea, why Chelsea have a right to not renew his contract. And basically, the argument stems from, you look at the wages, you look at his age as well. The fact is, Chelsea eventually need to look to the future and maybe looking at it and going, why can't we maybe invest in a younger player, or maybe invest in a defender who is going to be at the club longer? So maybe putting and investing that money that would have gone on John Terry's wages, maybe to a Marquinhos, something along those lines, which I can sort of understand. You know, you look at the wages he'll be on because he's a big player at Chelsea. He isn't just. I don't expect him to like drop to really ridiculous like low wages for John Terry, especially the stature of player he is, and the fact is how many clubs would actually want him at their club even at his age. So I could understand that side of the argument, and you can look at it and go, you know, he is getting older. Do you want as well him to see him on his like final legs? You know, the fact is, do we want him to go out in style, you know, in the way we would like to see John Terry go out, you know, at the top of his game, you know, maybe lifting a trophy if that's possible, and, you know, go out in John Terry style, you know, in the right way for such an iconic figure at the club. But then you have the other side of the argument. Now, I think, as I say, I still think there are many reasons, and I think the reasons, if I was to take emotion out of it, which I think is very difficult, I think everyone always goes take the emotion out of it. But the fact is, John Terry's been at Chelsea since I've been, for the whole time in my life as I've been supporting Chelsea. John Terry has been the captain pretty much. I've seen people make good points that pretty much at the moment you have a situation where the fan base are not happy with the board, not happy with the likes of Michael Emenalo and the business that's being done with the board, and pretty much that John Terry's kind of the only one in between that, that, you know, we still have the connection with and still feel positively about. We feel like we have a connection to John Terry because he is within the fabric of the club. So I think as well, it seems like another situation where the board simply have put like fans' opinions to one side and sentimentality on John Terry, who is absolutely probably, he's within one of the top 2 or 3 players in the club's history, in my opinion. And, you know, I think you find very few Chelsea fans who don't look at John Terry that way, you know, don't put him in their top 5, you know, don't eat. It's like, there are a lot of people who think, and rightly so, that he's the best Chelsea player of all time, you know, and you can also make an argument that he's the best English defender of all time, you know, and that's how good he's been for Chelsea, and also within English football, the impact he's had, considering his age. I mean, that's just as well, I always hear about age, you know, but you've got to look at where John Terry is in his career. And pretty much 2 or 3 years ago under Rafa Benitez, he was getting constant injuries and people were thinking, this is it, he's over. But he came back and he had 2 of the best seasons he's ever had under Jose Mourinho. And I think it just proves to you how good of a player he is. And even this season, I think he's gotten a lot of flack where maybe he shouldn't. Like, we always look at scapegoats in football, and I think people have pinned a lot of the blame on John Terry. Maybe not inside the club, but I think especially outside the club as well, are pinning the blame on him. And sure, he is the leader, he is the captain, he was the best centre-back in the league last season. You could maybe argue for the last 2 seasons as well, maybe. The fact is as well, John Terry, this is the age thing as well, John Terry played every minute in every Premier League game last season, 38 games, and, you know, for me, that just proves to me that John Terry is far from done yet. We saw the performance he had against Arsenal. I've seen recent performances in big games like Man United. They tell me that John Terry is not finished. I just can't buy that John Terry is finished. I've seen enough of him to think he is still that guy. Sure, he is on the way down, but, you know, he is still a player that I think is absolutely massive for Chelsea. And also another point that people have made, he is Chelsea's best defender probably. You know, Kurt Zouma, I think in 2 or 3 years is going to become one of the best centre-backs in European football and definitely the Premier League. Some people can even claim he is that at the moment. He's within that list. He is improving himself every game. And, you know, hopefully being next to John Terry, he can continue to make that. And maybe one day he might be the captain and leader of Chelsea. Some people do feel that maybe he could be the future leader of this team. And this is the point I've made. Do we have anyone that can just step up and take the captaincy? I really don't think so. I think the vice-captain currently, Branislav Ivanovic, is the only one. But he's not, you know what I mean, he'd just be taking the captaincy for about probably a year next season if that was to be the case. And would he even be in the team? For me, I think Chelsea should be looking for someone to replace Ivanovic. So even if you bring in a Marquinhos who could play anywhere pretty much along that back four, you know, and Dave goes out to right back, and then, you know, maybe you could have a system where, you know, Ivanovic pretty much isn't in the team for a lot of the times. I want a captain who's going to be in the team week in, week out, who's going to lead the team out, and the only reason he isn't in the team is either for rest, from injury, from suspension. I personally am someone who looks at the captaincy, probably because of John Terry, and see the captain's armband as something symbolic, something special. It's not just a little gimmick or a little prop that you put on your arm. It's something more than that, you know. And I think a lot of Chelsea fans look at it as something very symbolic and something very powerful, you know, someone who's going to lead the team forward. And that's, at least I think most football fans feel that. You know, you look at your captain, you think, he's the guy representing us. Who's the captain? You look at the captain, you think, does he reflect the team that's on the pitch? You know, is he a good technical standard? Does he understand the club in and without? Is he a guy leading the club? And I think these are all questions that need to be answered. And I think as well, when we haven't got a defender who's probably better than John Terry at the moment, that's the worry, I think, from a lot of Chelsea fans. And there's a lot of Chelsea fans who feel a disconnect to the players. Now, since the time of the year and Jose's gone, I think that connection has sort of been brought back a little bit. You know, Costa, Fabregas, some of those players getting back into form. And hopefully Eden Hazard can start to get a little bit of connection with the fans again. But without John Terry, I think there's a load of people who look at that team and think, I don't look at those players and I don't have trust that they fully understand the club, which I think is an important point. Now, John Terry will eventually come to the end of an era, and I understand that. And I understand the point, as I made at the start, that was saying that, you know, maybe financially and maybe Chelsea are looking at it and going, you know, age-wise, we want to get a younger defender in here. But I think at the same time, you've got to understand how powerful John Terry is in terms of the connection with the fan base to the players and all, and the way that kind of role takes place at Stamford Bridge. And I think people who maybe outside the club don't fully kind of understand that, and that's totally fine, you know, and that's just the way it is. But I think as a Chelsea fan, a lot of outrage as well is the fact that, once again, the board, PR-wise, have not done a good job. There's really no way they could have broken this news positively. There's no way they could have come out and said, we're not renewing John Terry's contract, that every fan was going to go, all right, fine, that's it, you know, that's the way it is. No, there was going to be a revolt. But the fact is, also, when you hear the fact that John Terry wasn't even told by Michael Emenalo or anyone at Chelsea that this was happening, he was told by his agent on the phone, and it just leaves the impression of a snide behaviour at Chelsea, a snide attitude, and something that doesn't seem fit right with a lot of Chelsea fans. And sure, it is the end of an era, and, you know, I've heard some good points that, you know, slowly Chelsea have sort of ushered out the old spine of the team. But I think there's a lot of people who feel that John Terry can do a lot more benefit and deserves to be the one to retire at Chelsea, because there's so many players now that just don't retire at their clubs, and people say that, financially isn't a good decision. But for me, I think John Terry's someone who wants to retire at the club. I think this debate will kind of rage on. I know there's a lot of aggression going around, and I think it all ties into the Emenalo thing and a negative atmosphere towards the board, and I completely understand all of that, and I've had my extreme criticism of the board. Aren't fully appreciating the fans and the importance JT has in that role between the club, the players and the fans, and the connection that holds. Personally, for me, it doesn't look like we have a good enough replacement to take John Terry's spot in the summer. And also, I just feel that having a player right there with this kind of hostile atmosphere to the board at the moment makes me feel that John Terry needs to stay at the club. But those are my opinions, guys. Let me know in the comments below your thoughts on the whole John Terry situation. Do you think he should stay? Do you think he should go? What do you think of the board currently? What do you think John Terry's impact will be if he does leave or does stay at the club? Let me know, guys, in the comments below. Follow me on Twitter @SonOfChelsea, and I'll see you again.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely on the way home. I was listening to the cup draw, and you get City out, and then you hear that JT's leaving at the end of the season. Yeah. It's a little bit depressing. Especially when we've had Lampard, Drogba, Cech, players who have basically been the spine of our team for the past decade. You know, it's especially JT because he's kind of the last one, and a lot of Chelsea fans this season are worried that there isn't players within that squad who truly understand the club. Right. And there's been a lot of games this season